Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of the Carvel Community Meeting, where we begin our new day and time of meeting every second and fourth Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. Today's date is July 27th. If you're watching this from home, we'd encourage you to come join us live. It's a great opportunity for you to come and meet the maintainers, meet other members of the community. You can come listen in on what we're working on. You can ask questions, or if you have a feature request or anything like that, we would love to have you come join us live and get to know you. For those that are on the meeting today and you have something you want to discuss with the team, just be sure to add that down below in the discussion topic section, and we will get to it towards the end of this meeting. If you are unable to join us live and you still have questions or want to hang out and get to know the community, you can still find us in the Carvel channel in the Kubernetes Slack workspace. You can email us in the Google groups. You can obviously find us in any of our GitHub repos and on Twitter at Carvel_dev. If at any point you are interacting with us or any members of the community, we ask that you please read and abide by our code of conduct. If you are using the Carvel tools, we want to know more about how you're using those tools. So we've created a pinned issue that just requests that you give us some more details about yourself and how you're using the Carvel tools in a comment on the issue itself. Optionally, we also ask that you put your organization's logo, and we would get that added to the adopters file. But the details that we request from you, it just helps the team understand more about how others are using the Carvel tools and helps with our planning for development and our roadmap and whatnot. It also helps the community understand how folks are using the tools, and in turn, gives them ideas of how they could use it as well. So please be sure to add a comment there. We'd love to know more. And those that are on the call today, just make sure you add your name to the attendees list. It is optional, but we'd love to keep track of who's attending the meeting. On to announcements. So since our last meeting, we've had a couple of blog posts. We have Cap and Dagger by Renew Yarde, and we have Cap Deploy on GKE using keyless authentication, OIDC by Yash Sethia. So these are a couple of really good blog posts. Highly encourage you to go check them out, give them a read. If you have any questions about them, please be sure to find us in Slack and or any feedback on them. We would love to know more about how you enjoy reading these blogs that we're putting out. Upcoming, we have something by Joe Kimmel, another maintainer of Carvel, giving us a review of Carvel in July. And then as far as these blog posts go and sharing content about Carvel, it's not limited to the maintainers to put out. We would actually love to know and hear more about how others are using Carvel and sharing the knowledge of how they're using Carvel with maybe other tools or anything like that. So we encourage folks to add their name and any topics they want to cover with Carvel, how they want to deliver that, how they want to share that knowledge. If they want to put it in a blog post, if they want to put it in a video, we'll upload it to YouTube. If they're going to be speaking on a workshop or anything like that, we want to make sure that we know about it and we can promote it in all the different channels that we have. And in turn, we also want to say thank you by sending you some Carvel swag. We have t-shirts and hoodies and beanies and all sorts of stuff. So, just we would love to know more and have others outside of the maintainers contribute. So if you have any questions about that, just let us know. Moving on to some releases. We've had several releases since we last met. So we had CAP with 0.50. Praveen, you want to give us some more context on this?
Yep, sure. So this release had like couple of bug fixes. One of them was related to the TTY flag. So by default, like the default value of TTY is actually, it has been set to true for deploy and delete commands, and because of that, it used to cause some issues with other commands as well. Uh, the headers and footers would come in the way when people would want to uh, kind of pipe the content to a file. So we have actually set the default value to false, and only for deploy and delete, that's set to true. Then we had an issue with the exist and no up annotation. So these annotations are basically used to wait for resources that are created by some other controllers, and these would not be part of the actual kapp app that we are like including in the manifest. So there would be conflicts when the controller was kapp-controller in this case, because kapp-controller would use kapp to deploy those resources, and they would already have the kapp labels. So that would cause an ownership check, ownership error. And so we have actually removed the ownership check for these resources. So we have also added support of unblocking changes before an actual change is like completed. So let's say there are two changes, change A and change B, and you would want change B to be unblocked as soon as a certain condition is reached in change A, but you'd still want kapp to reconcile change A completely till another condition. So you could use unblock changes for a particular condition, and then all the changes depending on that resource would be unblocked. Uh, Next up is diff changes YAML. This is a flag that we recently added, and with this, users could basically get the final YAML that kapp is going to be applying, including all the rebase rules or exist operation or delete operation that is going to be performed. We have also added default change groups and change rules for kapp-controller resources, that is apps, COS, package installs, and service accounts. So service accounts would now be created before apps, COS, and package installs, and would be deleted after kapp-controller and after app CR and package installs. And we got a first contribution from I can only read their handle right now. Victor. Yep. Thanks, Victor.
Thank you so much, Praveen, on giving us some more context around that. And thanks, Victor, for your contribution. Any questions on this release before we move on to the next one?
Real quick one, Praveen, the diff changes YAML, does that that shows the total YAML that's going to be applied as opposed to other output that shows the delta? Is this showing the whole thing?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
Yep, that's correct.
Cool. Cool. That's great.
For changes like delete, it wouldn't show the YAML. It would just show the comment that this resource is going to be deleted.
Makes sense.
Cool, cool. Any other questions or comments? All right. Moving on to image package. Joao?
Do you want me to give the update today?
That would be lovely.
All right, so I'll do it just for you. Cool. Okay, so the moment came for the glorious number 30 of image release of image package. So here we go. Let's all rejoice with these awesome changes that happened. So in this particular release, what happened? So we had two UX improvements where we basically give more information to our users of what's happening with image package. So right after, like a lot of you might not know, but right after we push all the images to the registry, what we do is we tag them. But in the end, what the users saw, it was like just, okay, all the images are pushed and then nothing. And then, oh, we finished. now we have more information. We're telling people what we're doing. So that's cool. And we now provide more information about, so if you're copying non-distributable layers around, so usually Windows layers, there's like, there was a warning saying like, there are non-distributable layers that we didn't copy. Now it tells you which layers they are and from which image. So that's pretty cool. And 2 bug fixes for this release. One of them, thanks Praveen for it. It's now our bash compilation now works. So thank you for that. And the other one is something that we've been asked for, and that is, how can I create a bundle in Windows that works in a Linux machine, right? And that was failing, that was not working, and now it is working. So that's awesome. And I think that's it. I don't know, does anyone have any question about the release? Okay, I assume it was not that exciting after all. Okay, fine.
I think it's so fun.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Joelle. All right, moving on to some vendor. Looks like just a little change. Add depth configuration to Git fetcher. Anybody need to give any more information on this?
Yeah, I can speak this a little bit. I know that this was a request. This has to do with when you have a Git source and you really just want the latest, that it could actually be expensive to either pull or update that local copy of the repo. But now you can manage that with the depth configuration.
Sweet. That's pretty cool. Oh. I wasn't sure if this mark right here, the red mark. Was that intentional? If there was an annotation. No, okay. All right, secretgen-controller. Who can speak on this? Joe, Neil?
I can try, although I didn't. I think this is really a incremental release, so it's mostly the release process itself that Neil that Neil improved. So there's not very much that's exciting from a user perspective, unless you're an ARM64 user, in which case now suddenly you're very excited because before there was nothing for you and now there's a release for you.
I think Scott was super excited about this.
Very. And I'm excited to have documentation for the secret template API. Less kubectl explaining is awesome.
Right on, right on. And I guess the other thing, and this is Neil's work, but he, in some sense, secretgen-controller, it now kind of shows what does the Carvel packaging team think a generic package might look like. So it's a little bit, it's an attempt at making, an archetypal package. We're really thought leaders in this space. Neil is the voice of a generation. So that's anyways, you can be inspired by his work.
I love it. And it looks like we had some new contributors. Glenn Rogers. Appreciate you.
And I think, he and the Sam guy, I think they work together on the secret template. So I think it's a little bit, I think he's an old new contributor. I think he was more involved in secret templating than GitHub realizes.
Got it. Okay. Understood. Yeah. So you're saying Sam and Glenn both, or?
That's been my impression, that there was some volleying between them during the development of the secret template.
Okay. I'll be sure to reach out to them.
Crazy. It's as if they paired or something.
What a concept. All right, thank you, Joe. Moving on to YTT.
Yeah, kind of rounding out the celebratory releases here. You might think that this version gives you the answer to life, universe, and everything. It's just shy of that. We're really excited about two huge developments here. One is an entire new module. If you're doing any floating point work, which is not very common, but it comes up from time to time, you now have lots of the basic math functions that are available to you. Do note, if you use any of that stuff, floating point math can vary across architectures, so buyer beware with that one. You'll get a proper warning if you do that, but it's still available to you. The other big thing that is coming out with this release is, on top of the basic plumbing that we have in place for YTT data values validation, we now have what we believe is that core set of out-of-the-box validation rules. So if you haven't had a chance to kick the tires on this still experimental feature, that first item there is a blog post that we put out that walks you through why are we doing this, how to get started with it. And then the other is a direct link into the docs to see what are those rules that are available. Now note, the window is closing in terms of being able to put your fingerprint on the overall experience and even some functionality on this feature. We're interested in your feedback. That's why we're putting this out in an experimental mode. We want to not commit to the API at first, give you a chance to have an influence on that. So taking advantage of that, we're going to want to do some validation on that and basically firm up that API very soon. So if you have any opinions about that, we'd love to hear them, big or small. That's not it. There were some bug fixes as well in this release. The first one was where there were a number of cases where when a function was being pulled out of another library or used in a different context, it would actually panic when it was trying to report some kind of syntax error. That's no longer the case. We're able to basically say, hey, we may not be able to provide the exact line that caused this error, but we can at least report a sane error message and give you much more useful, much more actionable output in those cases. And then Victor swung by YTT as well and dropped in his contribution on better error handling whenever we have HTTP errors. We'll do that when you can source files into YTT through the -- files flag. You can supply a URL there. So yeah, so this was actually like a number of contributions from folks outside the team. Thanks to folks who actually not only ported over the Starlark math module, but actually adapted it to a number of ways in which we're implementing those modules. Appreciate that. Lars dropped in a really cool example on how to use YTT to enhance his usage of a Helm chart. It's kind of cool. It's both the front end where there's validations on their data values and then using the post render hook to do some overlays. So that's a nice example of how to augment your using Carvel tools to improve your existing tool set. Yeah, and like I mentioned, Victor, thanks again.
Awesome. Thanks, John. And thanks to all those that helped contribute to this release. Any questions or comments on this?
I've
Okay.
already played with the validations and they're awesome, John.
Cool. I wanted to get with you, Scott, and push harder on some of the edge cases and see how that works for you. So I'm coming for you.
Awesome.
I'm glad you had a chance to kick the tires.
Yeah, and it's working awesome.
Sweet. Okay, moving on to huge announcement, big announcement, the reason why we are here. We submitted to the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, CNCF, consideration to be a donated sandbox project. So we submitted 2 weeks ago, and the TOC has to work through several other ones that have submitted ahead of us. So we hope to hear their decision in the next few months on whether or not we are officially a sandbox project with CNCF. So super huge, big news. We're really excited for this opportunity, and it just helps us become more of a vendor neutral project. Hopefully encourages more of y'all to come and help contribute and participate in the development process of Carvel and all that fun stuff. So really excited. We hope y'all are excited too, as we continue to evolve Carvel and get more involved in the cloud native community. So yeah, so big news.
Yeah, this is really great, Nancy. Like, one of the things that comes up a lot when we're talking about like project direction and things like that and what we're focusing on, it's round the table that we want to make sure that we're participating in the community, that we're contributing back, and that we're pushing the whole ecosystem forward. So this is exciting. Move in that direction, make that a structural commitment, and not just aspirational. So yeah, this is great.
Yeah. So stay tuned for when we officially become Sandbox Project. Okay, moving on to Aaron. You have an announcement here as well. Contributor Model Working Group.
Yeah, this is just a bit of a open call, but our intention here is to make the path to maintainership more visible, more discoverable. And although this working group is being driven by maintainers, it would be great to get input from the community as well, to make sure, it's clearly understood how you become a maintainer, what the different levels of being a maintainer would be, the roles, responsibilities, all that good stuff. So please ping me on Slack if you're interested in participating, and hoping to get this kicked off as soon as possible, probably next week.
Cool. Thanks, Aaron. Okay, moving on to status updates. Anything to share about what's going on with the roadmap?
Aaron, you want to go first?
Sure. We made a light refreshing of the roadmap. A lot of the themes, the couple themes here continue to be the same: package author improvements and providing stability. As John mentioned, the first one, the schema validations experimental, that's right on track, late July. So please play around with that and give us feedback. We have a GA that's planned for the end of next month, based upon the feedback we receive. Let's see. Then we have a couple of kapp-controller items in here, again on the providing stability theme. But some work that Dennis has been working on is surfacing namespaces for deployed resources. So this was a request that we have heard from multiple folks, just trying to get more information regarding, well, kind of like what it says, regarding the namespaces of what they have deployed. But feel free to click into there and learn more. There's another track of work that's going on around version safeguarding. It's essentially a collection of different stories that all have the word version in it to some degree, whether it is providing safeguards for versions that are being used, whether that is the cluster Kubernetes version, or yeah, I guess like I don't know, either Kubernetes versions, cluster versions, ways to either protect yourself or find more information regarding what is deployed. I don't know, Joe, if you want to add things to that.
The version of kapp-controller itself, that's the other version.
Perfect, thank you. And then Raina, you want to jump in on the K-control?
Yep. So for K-control, we've been working on it since past 2 months and trying to, now we are at the stage where we are ready to come out with alpha release. I think mid-August is when we are planning it. We will try out a few things with some of the projects that we have thought that would be good examples for us to try it out. And then so those examples would also make it into the K-control repo, and that should give us a good start. So request you all to give us feedback whenever you use, if you want to partner and try out the tool, let me know. We would definitely love to partner and see if we could package something together. Kapp, I have not put in here, but we are now working on the next milestone. I think Praveen will talk about what we are working on. However, one thing that I would like to see is and try out is if there are something that the community would want to bump up, and some of the issues that they would want us to see working more on. So just calling out to the community to see if you have something that you would want us to work on. Yep.
Cool. And then the last item on here for image package, well, image package is probably the incorrect label here, but the general idea is minimizing registry communications to provide a better user experience, especially when using large package repositories. Anything you want to add there, Joao?
Just that this is not an image package. This is kapp-controller, right? But yeah, so we've been hearing people complaining about like kapp-controller is starving some of the registries with a lot of connections, always trying to connect, always trying to download the images from them. So this is an effort for us to try to minimize this as much as possible, so that we can give a bump of performance on the registries as well, and also on kapp-controller, because eventually kapp-controller will become a little bit faster because it doesn't have to download all the images again. But this is more or less the work that we're planning to late August. Back to you, Anna.
Cool. Yeah, that's everything. As always, if you have feedback for us regarding this roadmap or would like to discuss what's coming next, this is an ongoing planning activity, and we're working on what is coming next. So please do not hesitate to reach out.
All right. Thanks, Aaron and Renew and Joao and everybody that helps with that roadmap. All right. Moving on to what the team is working on this week. So image package stuff. Joao.
Oh, look at me again. So basically, we've been kept on working on our resume flag. So we are adding a flag to our copy command. When you're copying it to a tar, you can provide now a flag called resume that will resume the download for your bundles when you're copying them to a tar. So like there are some complaints, people saying like, oh, I have a very big bundle. When I'm copying it, if it for some reason fails, I have to restart everything. So this little flag will allow you to start from where you were and do not have to re-download all the images. So we're trying to make it better for our users. So that's what we are, it's in PR now. So I am assuming that somewhere in the next couple of days, we'll be able to merge that. Just to let y'all know, like the second point is that we kind of stopped a little bit on the work that we were doing for the IS authentication that we were doing that I talked about a couple of weeks ago. Eventually we might start this, but there's like other competing priorities as well related to the roadmap that we just saw. So we'll see where things fall in there. And I think for image package, that's it. Kapp. Now.
Question, Joel, regarding the resume flag. Will that work if we don't have anything to resume from? So we could always use that in a script?
Yes, exactly. Like if you do -- resume and there's no file, image package is going to be okay, and it just moves on. So you can use always the -- resume in the script, and it's going to just keep on working.
Okay. Awesome. It's like I've never used kubectl create before. Just apply everything. Makes things much easier.
Awesome. Thanks, Joel. Moving on to Cap.
Yep. So exciting. We have been working for some time now, and you're kind of debating about how the output and the flag name should be. So right now, whenever we are applying or waiting for resources, if any of the resource errors out, we kind of quickly error out and don't apply the rest of the resources. But with this, change all the resources like as much as possible, in the sense that if there is a failing resource, then the resource that are dependent on it should not be applied. But otherwise, Cap will try to apply all the resources, wait for them, and then show the errors at the end. So yeah, as I mentioned, we are mostly debating about how the error summary should look at the end and what should be the flag name to kind of disable this feature. Next up is, so right now, if Cap does not have the permission to list namespaces, then it won't be able to like figure out the existing resources present on the cluster. Right now, we just use the flag, the namespace provided by hyphen and flag, and look for the resources in that namespace. But we are planning to use namespaces that we store inside the cap config map while deploying the resource. So in subsequent deploys, even if we don't have the permission to list namespaces, we would know which namespace to look for and look for the resources in them. Yep, that's it.
All right, thank you, Praveen. Any questions on Cap?
Yeah, that first item, Praveen, is that's something that we're going to change the default behavior. Is this a feature that you can opt into should you want to be able to apply everything that can successfully be applied?
Right now, we are setting default value to be opted in, but do you think we'll initially make it opt-in and then in maybe subsequent set it to be like the default behavior?
I see. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All right, moving on to kapp-controller.
I think we basically already talked about this in the roadmap. This is just the part of the roadmap we're executing on right now.
Okay, sounds good. And it looks like there's some links here to issue and the work in progress PR.
Oh yeah, we made full advantage of the hypertext web. Absolutely.
So yeah, if you have any questions on it or comments, be sure to take a look at those hyperlinks to the PR and issues. Or if you get a little itch to help contribute, we would love for you to participate in that way as well. All right, moving on to YTT.
Yeah, so we're going to be spending the bulk of our time. Right now, we're preparing to be able to do usability testing. So this is about setting up situations where we can get feedback on usability. Takes a little bit of work to do that. Look out for us soliciting for your participation in something like this. It should be, we're going to make it so it's really cheap and easy to do. If you want to just pop on a video call with us, 15 minutes or so, something like this, just to be able to try something out, to get some feedback from you on how it's working. Doesn't even have to be a formal session though. We're in this mode right now of trying to gather feedback about pretty significant feature, and we'd love to hear from you, because what we want to do is provide something that you find ergonomic, that it's intuitive, it's what you need, it works the way you want it to work. So we're interested in any kind of feedback on this, big or small, on the YTT validations. So that's our focus this week, is getting all that prepared and starting to do some of those interviews.
I want to say ditto for KCTRL, John. You said it so well.
Yeah, we want to hear from you, right? Right, Rena? Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Jen. And any questions, comments? Okay. There hasn't been anything put into this discussion topic section. Has anything popped up that folks want to discuss? We have just a little under 20 minutes left.
Scott, putting you on the spot, but do you have any recent conversations with your customers or anyone or your users which might be interesting for as it relates to Carvel? It's okay if you can say no, but just want to kind of give you the stage.
Not much. I'm using it more and more by customers. A lot of them are definitely interested in it and see the value of certain parts of it. The main one that I was never using but have started to use is Vendir by a lot of customers, and it's resonating, and is definitely helpful. Very much. So that's great.
Can you add a layer of depth there, Scott? Like,
yeah,
Vendir can do a few things. What's resonating? Where is it helping, please?
What's helping is them being able to pull in from multiple different sources into a very structured repository, where a lot of them are bringing in things from upstream and may have their changes that they're saving in a Git repo. And an easy way for them to start working with things is to pull down from mostly Git, but they're also using sometimes pulling down image package bundles. I've done this with different Tanzu products that come as Carvel packages, pulling down an image package bundle, and then pulling down a Git repository that may be called TKGM customizations, and then running a bunch of YTT overlays over them in order to make the packages more useful, or usable, or adaptable to the environment. So a lot of times we're using that as just an easy way to automatically just bring everything down so they can start working. I've also used it in certain environments to help them set up bootstrap machines. So pulling down binaries from 30 different places, pulling down scripts, pulling down whatever it is, it becomes very easy to maintain that way. They can run a single command basically and get all of the dependencies they need on their machine to start working in the environment. Something that before was a very tedious task.
And I just want to keep asking questions if you don't mind. Like, so there's this use case of Vendir where it's kind of like, what if Git submodules was a little bit easier and a little bit more generalized? And that's kind of what you're describing, yeah?
Yeah.
But the other part of what you're describing, it sounds almost like, and I don't want to like, it sounds almost like we should not tell your customers about Docker files, the hot new way from 2014 to download all the things that you need for a development environment, and you know, get up and running with your local dev. So it hadn't occurred to me that Vendir would also be competing with like Docker files in that way.
So you may be shocked, but there are many environments out there where Docker on your desktop is not allowed due to company restrictions and the fun of working on, for example, VDI machines that you have no admin access to, so can't install Docker Desktop, or they're non-persistent things. So you install Docker Desktop and you need to reboot the VM for it to work, and yeah, it's gone. there's a lot of fun around that by customers. So in those cases, things like vendor are solutions that make it easier in these, let's say, restricted environments where you can't just spin up a Docker container, exec into it, have whatever you need, just create these kind of immutable, use a Git pod, code spaces, whatever it is as a developer experience. Some customers are a bit more restricted in that manner, and vendor is an easy way to apply logic in those cases to give them a similar experience.
Thanks. This is super helpful. I really appreciate the depth. Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, for sure. And no, and we're doing a lot of packaging these days. And that's always fun. So, but yeah.
Cool, thanks, Scott.
I
As
did read, by the
always.
way, a new height in amount of packages in a package repository.
Oh, we want to hear about it.
I may happen to have 984 packages in a package repository currently. It may not behave the best possible. It may take a bit of time to reconcile the package repository.
Yeah. So did you bump down the sync, what do we call it, sync period?
Oh, I had to because it doesn't finish in that time.
Yeah.
It takes more than 5 minutes to sync. Yeah.
Well, what is it? Is it a recent version of kapp-controller, like the 36, 37, 38, or is it older?
It's whatever version is included in the latest commercial offerings coming out from VMware, so no.
Okay, so we did, I think the version in the upcoming commercial offering series, it'll be a little bit faster, just
Okay.
off the shelf. But yeah, probably.
Yeah, I should try it probably on like an EKS cluster that I have just around and see how the speed is with the newest version, just install upstream.
Yeah, we would love to hear about it, because I know like we did some benchmarking, we did some tuning, but you know, benchmark, especially this benchmark was intentionally synthetic. Like it was like every package was just empty brackets. So, you know, I think we'd love to hear about real world friction and how it's landing for you.
Oh, mine is 15 versions of every chart in the Bitnami Helm chart repository. Or the commercial version of the Bitnami Helm chart repository. And converted into using image package and kbuild and whatnot to give you everything, and schemas filled into the everything. So it takes some time. They're quite large. It's only like 100 something gigs, though. Besides, I like pushing things to the extreme, if you can't tell. I live on the edge.
Just see how far you can go.
Exactly. But I definitely have changed the resources allocated to kapp-controller. But yeah, so I'll test that out though with the latest version and let you know if there was any different, how big the difference was.
Yeah, and because again, like from benchmarking, it's hard to tell if we made some of the overhead 20% faster, but really the limiting factor is, you know, downloading and running Helm. We didn't make those steps any faster.
Exactly. But right, that's where real life of a real package repository with different packages in each one is, you know, so I will check it out.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Sweet. Thanks, Scott. And anything else?
Yeah, Nancy, really quick. Praveen and I had a little bit of an open thread there in his update, and the internet wasn't cooperating. I'd asked about that point in kapp where we're working on this feature to be able to apply as much as we possibly can and collect errors and report those. And Praveen was asking, they're planning on making it the right default behavior and provide an option to opt out of it so that it would be the default to do that. I was wondering, what should that behavior be? So I have an opinion, but it's not exactly the most informed. It really kind of depends on what would be most useful to the end user is what I'm thinking. That if failing fast, spending less time waiting for a deploy, that we have got information that says, oh, this whole thing's not gonna completely work, and they want to know that as soon as possible. Maybe that's useful to be able to run it in that state. But if more often than not, it's better just to try and deploy as much as possible. And if there are a few things, a few components that aren't going to make it, that's fine. Actually, would make it easier to learn all the things that aren't quite working. Maybe that's a better experience. But I feel like I'm not terribly qualified to give a good authoritative answer to that. Wonder if others on the call might have an opinion.
I
Sure.
think that airing out fast is what most people would like from my experience, with the ability to say, just do everything. Like do everything you can. So having a flag for that, or having even the ability within the kapp-config to be able to set, not only is this enabled or not, but the ideal would be to be able to say certain types of objects that fail, you should continue anyways. There may be certain types of failures that may happen in certain cases that we want to say, okay, continue if this happens. But if I enter a crash loop backoff of my container, there is no reason for me to continue deploying a service and an ingress and a whatever other objects there are, because it's not going to expose anything. But if it's some auxiliary object, let's say, maybe I do want to continue and just that one object won't be created. So I think having the ability to set which objects or what types of failures you would accept within a kapp-config to just say kind of, hey, proceed anyways, would be kind of the middle ground there that gives on one hand the better quick feedback to someone, and on the other hand allow for a bit more customization.
Yeah,
Okay.
Praveen?
Yep. So, so I'm hearing that for certain scenarios, it would be helpful to air out as soon as possible. And one example Scott mentioned is, I guess, deployments in pods. Yeah, right now we are actually just using a flag to enable or disable it, but we could certainly look into how we could possibly configure this for certain resources through the config.
Yeah, I think that's a nice to have, right? That's a nice enhancement after this. I think having the flag on its own is a huge value. And I think would bring huge usability improvement. So definitely a huge fan of that. I think that the adding to kapp-config would just be a nice additional feature, I guess you could say, in the same vein down the road as a extension of this.
Yep, cool. Makes sense. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, thanks everybody.
All right. Thank you for that. Anything else? Okay. Thanks everyone for joining us for our new day and time. And if you're watching this from home, we encourage you to come join us for the next one. We meet every second and fourth Wednesday of the month at 9 a.m. Pacific time. So with that, enjoy the rest of your week, and we hope to see you soon.